age groups. It is adaptable. You have current events. You have many, many programs that I'm fond of.
Come and let me tell you a story I know, all about trains and where they go, all about trains and what they do, all about trains.
As you can see, my layout's come a long way. I've got my track laid down. I've got the hard shell scenery. Over that, I've got the ground cover already down. The rocks are down. Made my cut for the river. The water is in. My road is up. Now I'm ready for the next step, structures. Joining me today is Richard Camp.
Chuck, I think the easiest way to discuss structures is just to show some and see what the different aspects are of structures. Now, I brought with me several from the hobby shop. This is the simplest structure. This is often referred to as the shake-the-box structure. If you shake the box slightly, lift it up, and voila, the finished kit. Actually, you've got to put one part in yourself. So you kind of take the little piece out, the box, stick it on top of the station, and now you've completed your first kit. This structure is fairly nice. It's fairly inexpensive. Let's take a look at some others, though. Here's a kit for a little more advanced modeler. In this case, if you shake the box and open it up, you just got a bunch of parts. In this type kit, you would take the parts out, look underneath, and find an instruction sheet. Read through this very carefully. Usually read the whole sheet at least once, maybe twice. Understand what you're going to do before attempting to put the kit together. The various parts come pre-molded and in different colors, which will allow you to put together fairly quickly a nice-looking structure. So a little bit more advanced than the shake-the-box kit.
This structure is a lot different colors, though. What if I don't want all the colors to be the same?
Well, let's take a look at some of these others. These are a little more advanced kits here. In this case, you're out of the shake-the-box routine altogether. But you do still have the instruction sheet, the most important part of any kit. And now you have individual parts that you can cut out as you please or not. You also paint these to whatever color you want.
But these are wood instead of these being the first ones.
Well, the kits can be wood, they can be plastic, they can be plaster, quite a number of different things. I'll even show you an epoxy kit in a little bit. Okay. This kit has probably become one of the standards of the industry. These kits come with tremendous instruction sheets. They include photographs, they include full-size plans. You just open it up, and there's a plan that you can tape down to your bench top and build the kit right on top of it. Follow the instructions step by step, but you're getting into more advanced kits because now you've got quite a number of parts to work with. Again,
packages A, B, and C there.
Yeah, these are for separate structures that actually make up the overall kit. Now let's go a little step further, and here's a little more advanced kit. This forms quite a large building. But again, you've got the same basic parts. This time, instead of being totally wood, you've got some metal castings included as well. So a little more advanced. You can even go up to a kit like this that I mentioned earlier. These are the plaster or plastic resin castings. And in this case, here's a fully detailed brick wall pre-done for you. The roofs come made from sandpaper. You open it up, they're already colored, and everything. Makes into a very nice kit. Again, it takes a little bit of time and care, but you can come up with quite a good kit. Probably right now the ultimate in kits would be something like this. These are the true craftsman kits. In this case, you're getting, again, a very large instruction sheet with finished photographs and a great deal of information about what to put around beside the kit, not just on the kit, all the little details that go around it to give you a really craftsman quality kit. These kits, though, I warn you, may take 2 or 3 weeks to put together. They're not an overnight situation. So you've got quite a variety. Some other type kits that are available include something like this. This is just a false front building. It comes precast in a fiberglass type material. You can sit down at the workbench put a little bit of paint on it, and put it up next to you, the back of your layout, and it makes a very effective structure very quickly. The other thing to not forget is that more than just buildings come in kits. In this case, we have some trees that come in kits. Here you receive the metal tree stems and some foam material to make the actual trees with. Then you just kind of bend the stems out. And see, you can do this fairly quickly, kind of whatever angle pleases you right at the moment. Bend it around.
This is just all lead, though, right?
Yeah, this is a very soft type material, lead or similar material. Let me let you hold this just a second. Then we'll take some of this foam material, and you just pull it out into very nice little, very thin strands where you can see through most of it. You kind of drape it on the edge of the tree.
This material is sort of like the ground foam.
It's made by the same people. It's the ground foam, except it's on a very fine nylon net in this case. And we'll just tear some different pieces out of sizes and shapes. You can cut these out and then stretch them. Again, it just kind of varies with the individual. But now we're draping into a very nice lacy type tree. And you just pull these out. You can drape them over in just about any manner. And you're well on your way to a finished tree. Now you would take that and spray it with a fixative or adhesive to keep that on afterwards. So just a little different type of kit is actually the trees themselves. The other kits that you should keep in mind are kits like this, which include a lot of different things. Here we've got a couple of trucks, we've got some automobiles, we've got railroad signals, we've got some power lines, all sorts of things. Most of this stuff we'll try to use today and demonstrate some of the techniques of how to turn this from a store-bought kit into something that's very individual and special for you. Let's move this out of the way, and we'll discuss some of these techniques. Now that we've gotten those out of the way, the first thing we notice about your scenery is that it's still fairly uniform. There's not a lot of variation in it. So I brought along just a little thing that I call universal ground mixture. It's the same type foam you were using last week, just kind of mixed in with several different things. And the same company that brought us the trees we were looking at a while ago brings us some little structures like this, which are just kind of tree stubs. This is the same material I was using a while ago to build the tree. Same type of foam material. We'll just pull it, tear it out into little individual pieces, and we're starting to make us some shrubbery to sit in and around this area. So we can add a little bit of variation. Again, this backside of this hill is fairly steep, and so you wouldn't see a lot of vegetation there. But on the front side, you might see it's a little more of a slope, and you might see a good deal of variation in it. Again, once we kind of get that like we want it, don't overdo it. You can put too much in. If you do, go ahead, pull it back out now before you get too far into this thing. Go ahead, spray it over with a clear spray adhesive or your water. Just plastic tree bases. And these
One moment, please.
When you look at that, first of all, you say, uh-oh, you've ruined a perfectly good little kit. Especially down on the bottom sides, it's going to be quite a bit of stuff thrown up from the truck. And then on the top, you may have some coming back as well. on that. So when you start out, you say, ooh, that's too much. Maybe I've kind of overdone that a little bit, huh?
Well, it
'Cause
does look a little...
that's quite a bit there. So what you do is you come back with a little bigger brush, put it in your water, and you can kind of paint off the things you don't want. Remember, on the sides, sweep things vertically. Don't sweep them from side to side.
Oh, you
but-
mean
yeah,
it
because
would drain to the
the
bottom
way
of it?
things normally, right, they would normally drain to the bottom. So if you paint across that way, it looks kind of funny. So you
Yeah.
paint downward this way. The other thing it'll do is bring all the grime and everything down to the very bottom of the truck. On the back, the other side the same way. So now you got kind of a dirty little truck that you can use on your Pike, and that's quite a bit of difference from the one that initially came out of the kit. Now you're on the first step of really getting things that look like your own highway, your own railroad. This is no longer something you can buy in the store. It's a little bit something different. That's one of the things, one of the tricks of detailing scenery, or so-called super detailing, is there's something different here than what I see everywhere else. When you walk in and you've got the same thing everyone else does, they immediately recognize it. If you can change it just a little bit, gives your railroad a distinct identity.
What if I had some oil colors around and just wanted to squirt them in a little bit? Could I do the same kind of weathering technique?
You could do the same thing with oil-based paints. The one caution about that, though, is that some oils will attack plastics.
Okay.
So you might wind up with a yellow and red glob down there rather than a truck and a cab. So you have to be careful about that. One way to do that is to take a small amount of that paint first, turn over somewhere where it won't be seen, and test a little bit. Take a little test area. If it eats the plastic up underneath, it'll eat it up everywhere else, and don't use it.
Okay.
But otherwise, you can do just like that and have a fairly nice little looking truck. We'll let that dry a little bit while we do some other things.
Okay.
Chuck, let's take a look at the rightness of structures and where we would put things. Let's go back to our Shake the Box little station and see where it would fit in. We certainly wouldn't fit it in on top of this mountain here. It wouldn't look right up there. We might be able to edge it in right here, but that's fairly close to the edge of the layout, and it might just tumble off on us. So that's not really a good location. Over here, we're stuck with the same sort of things. You wouldn't put it over top of the water. If you turned it this way, you really couldn't get it to fit because now it's servicing the road more than the railroad. So one rule of thumb to remember is if you can't make it look right, just don't use it. Just take it and remove it from the layout. Don't try to force too many things. Another prime example of that is let's take a number of these structures that you have here. Well, you could put that building out there, and then you could put this building over here, and you could just find 3 or 4 other buildings and set on there. But before long, what have you done? You've made things very crowded and very busy, and it's hard to focus on any one given thing. So one of the second rules that I like to use is that to try to have one primary scene or objective to draw everybody's attention to. Try to get them into that area rather than just looking at everything at once. It's so busy that you can't appreciate everything, and often you overlook things. So let's take most of these back and see if we can't develop us one nice little scene that maybe would attract everybody's attention. I brought along some odds and ends today. And looking at this area, one of the things I noticed in coming over here is everywhere I go, there's some construction going on. So let's take us some concrete pipe. Maybe what we're doing is we're building a culvert that's going to run and dump out here in your river, runs over underneath the highway, and will service a big industry over here. So we put our concrete pipe out there. Got the same sort of thing with these
Concrete
pieces of
truck?
equipment. Yeah, a concrete truck. Gee, I've never seen a good, clean concrete truck. So we'll dirty it up a little bit. We'll just splash some of our watercolor on here. I don't use a lot of black. Stay away from pure black. Use mainly browns. The black itself, very few things come naturally in a hard, dense black color. What you really want is some subtle variations. So we'll cover this truck up pretty well. Now, remember there's something about concrete that's a little bit different from most of the other things. Concrete itself is white. So we'll add in some white coloring, or lighter color, especially back here in the back where the concrete would be coming out all the time. See, then that blends in with our brown and our black and kind of gives us an irregular gray or kind of a concrete color. Okay, now we've put our truck out there for the concrete. Same sort of thing with these caterpillars. I've never been on a construction site and seen anybody have a clean caterpillar. This is where you can really have some fun. There's no real way to mess it up. You just take and put it around. Now we've got kind of a dirty little caterpillar. You can go back and touch this up as much as you want. Again, with the watercolors, there's no problem with worrying about them harming the trucks that you're using. Now, if we were working near a highway, the next logical thing we would be having is some stuff up to protect the highway, the cars, so they don't run over us and vice versa. So we're going to put up a few little flags here. These, again, just come in a regular kit that you can get at the hobby shop. Put a few of those out and say, hey, please don't run over us if you can avoid it. And likewise, these also come with some little pylons, which we'll put out. How many times have you seen a scene like this, huh? That's what you want to do. You want to have something that looks like you've seen it before.
But the only thing we're lacking is a couple of people.
Well, yes, there are always people around, unless it happens to be the lunch hour break or something. So we'll get us some workmen and put out here.
I can never decide where to put the people.
Well,
That's one of the reasons
number one, people are usually running the machinery. So we'll put a man up running that machine. We'll get another guy and put him up here running our bulldozer. So now we've developed a little mini scene. Something that you could look at and say, oh, I remember that construction going on. Boy, last time I was going down the street, that gave us some construction. Now let's go back and take your building. Well, now one thing we'd have to do is kind of have a driveway into the building. You just wouldn't be running over all this rock. So what you can do is just grab your old trusty chisel and chisel that rock right out of there. Let's move our building back just a moment so we don't get on it. And we just take this rock up. This is one of the nice advantages of working with that plaster hard shell, is you can literally just scrape it up, get it out of the way. So now we've kind of excavated ourselves, if you will, a little road. Now our white plaster is showing through, so we'll just grab some of our old friend the watercolor. Dab that in there. Take a little bigger brush now and kind of blend that into the scenery.
It did.
So now we've kind of created a little bit of a dirt road coming off our main highway going up to our building.
So then I can just take the building and...
Right, slide that building right back in place. Excellent. Okay, now notice that still the building just doesn't quite blend into the layout.
No.
It seems to sit up above the layout. And we've got a big gap right here. Well, one of the best ways to take care of that is just to take some of that universal ground foam mixture and throw it around to hide that edge. You can kind of bring it up and blend that right in. Now it's starting to look as if that structure is built into the layout rather than sitting up on top of it. We'll grab some of our foam mat. You can tear off a few pieces and put them around the edge there. There might be some small foliage. Now, you wouldn't overdo this at all. Yeah, just kind of slide it around the sides.
Sort of like some weeds growing or some shrubs or something on a corner.
And kind of tear it into a little bit smaller pieces. Pull it out very fine. You most likely would find it as kind of low-lying brush or ground cover. Now, about the only other thing we can do is add a little variation to our riverbed. Now notice that right now it's fairly clean. What you can do is just again take some of your little foam, pull it out into some nice long pieces, and drape it on the edge of the river. So you're just wanting to kind of highlight that area by throwing in a little bit of green. So now I think you've seen some of the basics of adding to the scenery. The scenery itself shows the effects of nature. Now you want to kind of show the effects of man in here. You need to add things in, but blend them in together. And don't have one separate from the other.
Okay, so actually what we're really talking about is structures are part of scenery then.
Structures are a continuation of scenery. It doesn't matter whether this is a single building sitting over here or a big clump of trees. They serve the same effect. As a matter of fact, it may cost just as much to cover that area with trees as it would to cover it with one structure. This area also would be used in most layouts as a bridge area, not in the sense of a bridge over your river, but you have a large town just down the way here, and then you're going to have a little switching puzzle just off on the other side. And I think this area kind of separates those apart. It gives you the feeling that you left one town and went to another. This is often overlooked by modelers. They try to put as much trackage into an area as they can, and they often wind up with what we call a spaghetti bowl layout. It's just track on top of track on top of track.
If all of this comes to one area where we're doing a scene, for instance, the construction work, normally a lot of construction work would encompass a much greater area. So we've taken a few pieces that are representative of it. Is this what is an example of selective compression?
Yes, very much so. In the model world, you really can't take something at its full length, breadth, and width. So you use a little bit of artistic license, or modeler's license, and you selectively compress things to give the feeling. This construction site certainly wouldn't be the type thing you would see in real life, but it gives you the idea that there's some construction going on, that there's work there. You add in the other things, your imagination adds them in for you. You don't see every detail, but you just know that there have to be more details out there because you just know those people are actually working hard to put that culvert in and tie up the highway. Chuck, that completes the basic techniques you need for doing scenery, detailing and super detailing. Now all you need to do is utilize these techniques here on your layout, or the viewers use the same things at home. There is one more type of structure that most people don't really think about, and that's the backdrop.
This is Mary Cam, Richard's mother. I asked her to come over to my house today to give us an explanation of how you do background scenery. Mary, where do we start with this?
The first thing we do, we start with a basic background. We use a very cheap white paint. And with just one gallon of white paint, you can paint all you want to. And then I take the white paint and I add some blue pigment, which you can buy in a very small tube, so you won't have to buy a quart of blue of every shade.
The same kind of pigments like we used for the burnt sienna and that?
Right,
Okay.
and that comes in acrylic tubes. Don't get all and mix it with acrylic. If you do, you're in trouble. I divided my paint into 4 different mixtures. I have a very light value. I have a little light, a darker value. Then I have a middle value, and I have a dark value. Then I have some yellow. I have some mauve. I have some gray to put the shadows in the clouds. And with my brushes, I try to use as large a brush as I possibly can. And this is a 3-inch brush. This is a 1.5-inch brush. And these are just brushes that I have around the house. It can be just any size. And I always have plenty of water and paper towels. Okay, we're going to start with the lightest value. So we will start right at the bottom here. We're going to start with the horizon. So here we go. And use as big a brush as you possibly can, because that will help you quite a bit.
When you're talking about values, what is a value?
Well, a value is a different shade. You see, I'm going to use this lighter shade right here. That is the very, very lightest. Now I'm going to move up into the second value, which I add just a little bit more of blue pigment to it.
Now this is just a plain white acrylic paint?
Plain white acrylic, just like you would paint a bedroom.
Well, there's, okay, so there's like satins and flats and stuff. Is this?
That's right. This is a flat finish. It really doesn't matter. You could use either one. All right. Now then, we're going to move on up to the darker color. And this is usually thought of as the overhead sky. Now, that's really blue, but we're going to take care of that. Now, if you run a little bit where you look like you're becoming a zebra, just come back into your middle value and work it right on up into your darker value.
Now this is basically the same blue pigment in each one, just a
Yes,
heavier?
only just a little bit more of each one.
Okay.
Now, you just work that all the way up. Because we must remember, Chuck, this is just a small area. When you're going to work on a room-size area. So you would bring it up, divide your room into thirds, and usually you're pretty well right that.
Okay.
You can't go wrong. And then you have room enough to put your clouds in. But, you know, when you first walk in, don't be afraid of that big wall, because it'll all turn out right. You can't make a mistake, because all you have to do if you make a mistake, just go right over to some white, and I'll show you.
I was
We
wondering.
can just tone that down a little bit.
So we're ready to put clouds.
Okay, this is your finished wall.
Okay.
Now you're ready. It's dry, and now you're ready to put your clouds on. And when you make your clouds, that's the fun part. And remember, clouds are billowy. Clouds are full of air, Chuck. They float. And if you just go outside someday and look at your clouds, look at them. Just see how full of air they are. Now, in order to put some color in it, I have mixed some gray. And in order to have a little gray, all we have to do is take some black pigment. Add a little black to your white, and you have gray. If you want a storm cloud, let's put some gray in there. If you want it to rain, this is a rain cloud.
This makes a much more realistic background.
Okay, and then you can just skip around.
Well, here's the finished product. Imagine what it would look like on your layout. Next time on All About Trains, we're going to talk about power and control for model railroads. Join us.
Let the good times roll Saturday night with the sweet sound of music at 8. Get things started with Lawrence Welk, followed at 9 by the musical extravaganza of the week. And at 10, Austin City Limits takes the stage all the way till 11. 3 hours of continuous music every Saturday night. So cut a rug on 56, musical television in Detroit.
All about trains and where they go.